Recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spark Creativity from the Five Senses. Today, we're going to go over a basic, simple outline of things that you can do to get ready to settle into your creative work, whatever it is, be it writing or making art or preparing a different kind of project. And these are very simple, basic things where we get in tune with each of the five senses, and you don't have to do all five every time. It's about ideas to prompt you to come up with your own practice of settling into your body and being able to take a moment to hone in on that one sense and then get kind of a meditative space for a moment before you go back to your creativity. I'm going to go ahead and start with that, with a little beginning practice for us all here in the webinar, for myself included, and just kind of roll from there. So, to get started, tune in to your body and where you are, your surroundings, and take a moment to observe where you are externally. Take a breath. Let it be easy. Let your body move with your breath, your belly move, your ribs expand, and then also fall as you breathe out. And then settle into that physical sensation of being in your body, where you're sitting, whether you have any tension in your shoulders or in your jaw or in your back. And even if there are unpleasant sensations, accept those. Take in just where you are right now without any judgment or need to be elsewhere or need to be feeling completely relaxed either. Take a moment and hear the sounds of your surroundings. If you're wearing earphones, you may or may not be hearing ambient noise. I'm hearing the AC running in my room. You're probably hearing it in my microphone as well. But take a moment to hear what you're hearing. And maybe there are smells in the air, ambient. Sometimes we don't smell the smell of our home unless there's something cooking or we're diffusing an oil or we are using a cleaner, but those very familiar smells are still ones that we are processing in our minds. So take a moment to check into that sense as well. Right. And last of all, well, smell is kind of directly associated with taste. So also check into what you might be tasting. If there might be still something that you have eaten recently or tasted. Sometimes memories evoke tastes, even though we're not actively tasting them at the moment. You think about what you had last for food or drink. And then last of all, touch. We've already checked into where our body is internally, but you could take your hands and put them together, rub them to create warmth between your hands. Continue breathing and checking in with your body. And once your hands have a little bit of warmth between them, you can either cover your eyes, feel that there, or just touch your face or even touch your wrists or your skin over your heart, whatever you feel comfortable with. It can be a little awkward if you're not used to a yoga practice, but getting into these different senses can feel strange if you don't have a regular practice that way, because we are trained to kind of keep in motion, keep in action, keep in work. We're going to take a little bit of time out today, not just to check into those senses, but also to think about how we can engage those senses and use that as a calming ritual or just prep mode for getting into creativity. So one of the important things about the creative practice is that we have a lot of effort going in to that. And it's not just whatever our mind is bringing to the process, or whatever our subconscious is bringing, or even the skills that we're applying to what we do, but we are also bringing our past memories and sensations. And as a writer, sometimes it's very easy for me to think about things in terms of stories that I've already read, stories that I've already thought about writing out. Dialogue, I'm very auditory, so I often talk about the sounds of things, and I might not be communicating as much in my stories about what things look like or what they smell like, because I have this particular sense that I'm a little bit more attuned to. But to create something that's really fully bodied, I want to actually incorporate all those senses. And that's something where, to continue to bring more and more to my writing, I want to actually practice mindfulness of those things, consciousness of those things. And the way that you do that is to take these moments. And sometimes it can be hard to pull moments out of that time that we have to be creative and feel like we're not doing anything productive. But ultimately, you have to take those moments of calm and quiet to be able to bring all of those other experiences to bear. I love paintings that are very tactile. And I know that when I see a painting that is really beautifully done and really fully bodied, whether it is a Rothko painting that's monochromatic, or it is an impressionist painting or a realism kind of painting, that when the artist's work is speaking to me, it's because they have brought more than just the sense of sight to their piece. It has a physical presence that is a little bit bigger than just, oh, this is what the person is going to be seeing. These experiences that we engage with them in all of our senses, because our imagination enters us into a world, be it one that we are seeing in a picture, in a movie, or hearing in a book, or somebody telling us a story. We often feel these very full body experiences when someone's telling us a story that is very gripping and uncomfortable, or good storytellers will bring us right in, and we will be feeling that full body sensation. And that's actually an important part of human empathy, that when we are listening to a story and we are really giving it our full attention, we will be experiencing it on a level. That's why television and movies are so powerful, is because our bodies sometimes feel very much that they are going through those experiences. So that's where it is important to think about all five senses. And it's also important to set aside time to engage in those senses for the art that we want to do. Next, let's talk about how we can actively put those things into our life. So I'm going to start with the sense of smell. Smell is one of those very powerful things that will disrupt our thoughts. If you come across a horse barn as you're out on a walk, or even as you're driving by, you'll know it. You will have your brain kind of interrupted by the smell of the animals there. That's partially because, when we intake smell, it's washing right past our brain. And that's a useful warning system. If you've got food that's bad and you're smelling it, you immediately know, okay, nope, that's not worth eating. It also helps us find things that are pleasant, like, flowers are out there. Those things are good signals for us. And in a more modern context, we have often surrounded ourselves with smells that are synthetic or that are just diffusing from things like plastics or cleaners. And those are also important signals that our brains are taking up. So I like to talk first about fresh air and the importance of fresh air. I don't mean like having to go out into the wilderness and get fresh air, though that is also something that that's highly recommended for your health and well-being. But sometimes when you are sitting in front of a computer working for a long period of time, the best way to re-energize is to step away from that and get outside, be it taking your work with you out onto a patio or going for a very brief spell outside. And you can do that very simply, just by giving yourself the permission to get up from that work and move and go outside. Of course, if you're in the middle of the city, the air outside is not going to be as wonderful as if you are out in the country, but it's still something where, a change of air can be a great way to take a break from your task and then come back to it re-energized. Then there's also, powerful things that we can use to stimulate our sense of smell, and that are, in real like smells. I used to always love to take a certain way to walk to my piano lessons or whatever when I was a teenager, and we lived very close to a bakery that did red bean buns. Actually, this was in Japan. And the thing is, I actually never tasted those. It wasn't that I needed to eat them. It was that the smell itself was really powerful and warming, and I really loved that smell. So I would take that path to walk by there. And I think that that's something where you're giving yourself a little bit of a gift, a little bit of a grace, if you are willing to go and let yourself experience those good smells. You can go into a candy store, those smell amazing, or you can go by a bakery, or you can go to a farmer's market and smell the herbs that are out there. That's kind of something that you can do to go out and get a little bit of a break. But you can also bring those things into your home. You can buy herbs. You can gather herbs and take them in and have them with you somewhere. I also really love to have essential oils. I use Young Living essential oils because I feel like they are the most pure and wonderfully handled oils. And those are, because essential oils are really highly distilled and powerful, they are also extremely useful for taking that moment and breaking up the maybe spinning wheels of like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to write next? How do I approach this problem? How do I solve it? Instead, taking that moment to stop and interrupt the flow. If you are in that point of kind of frustration or not being able to move forward, taking that moment and intentionally interrupting it by giving yourself a smell that is good. I think that's part of what is so attractive about coffee, because the smell of coffee itself is very galvanizing. My sister lets her coffee get cold, which to me, I think, like, why would you drink cold coffee unless you were going to turn it into an iced beverage, which sometimes she does. But she even said the other day that like the smell of the coffee is enough to motivate her to get up and going, and then she almost doesn't even need to drink it. So think about what kinds of smells you really interact with every day that are pleasant to you, that are part of your routine, maybe without you even realizing that they are drawing you. And if you have a piece of paper and a pen, I'd actually like for you to stop for a moment and write some of those down. Be it in the morning, pouring yourself a glass of juice, getting yourself toast. What are some of those smell-oriented moments in your day that you enjoy? And I'm not saying that you now have to be ritualistic about always providing yourself with those smells, but just engage with that. Like, what are these moments during the day that I really enjoy? And how can I use those as a way to stop, appreciate the moment, get a reset in my mind? I am going to actually grab one of my essential oils and take this opportunity to enjoy it before moving on. Next, I have the sense of touch. So this is one where we use our hands for everything, and we often are hurrying through our day and not able to really enjoy our tactile senses. And this is, I think, actually a serious problem for people in modern times. Let me know in the chat if I'm cutting out, because it says that my internet connection is unstable, which is probably the truth. I have feedback. I can hear you fine. Great, great. I think because it streams video, sometimes it's a little bit like, oh no, we might lose you. So, some things about the sense of touch that you might not think about all the time as part of your everyday life is the sensations of hot and cold. I always know, I always have this, when I go into a bathroom that has an automated faucet, there's this thought pattern going on in my mind, especially in the middle of winter or in the middle of summer, that I feel like I can tell the priorities of the organization by how hot or how cold the water is, and whether they've set it to be really tepid. Now, it could be that the technology is letting them down and it's not actually producing the temperature of water that they want. But that's something that, like, I actually think about it, when I'm putting my hands under that faucet and feeling how hot or cold the water is that they are providing for me. This is something that you can think about too in terms of body sensation. You can be wearing clothes that feel good to you, or you can be wearing clothes that, like, they don't feel great, but they look good, and your other clothes are all dirty, so you're just going to wear those. Sometimes we will have certain clothes that we have that feel good, that we always save for special occasions and we don't wear, because the fabric is really nice. That's something too, where you can think about, how do you introduce more of that sensory reward to yourself in your everyday life? And so maybe if you're struggling with a project, one thing that you could do is think about whether going and changing your clothes from your weekend slop clothes to, I'm working and I'm a professional, or, because I know that there are some people who, when they work from home, it's very important for them to put on clothing that feels like professional clothing. But also maybe wearing a shirt that's a silky light blouse, or wearing comfortable pants would change that dynamic for you in that moment, to give yourself some kind of a physical anchor. Take a moment to enjoy that. I have, I've tried to get little little props for myself for the different senses. Oh, the other option is to have something like a nice cream. This is coconut lime, which is probably my most favorite combo of smells ever. And use the sense of touch as another meditative moment. It doesn't have to take long, but enjoy the sensation of, I think there's a tendency to get really caught up in, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And so even when putting on lotion or getting something nice to wear on, our minds are already caught up in the next thought. So you have to stop and appreciate the moment. And again, this is something that you don't have to do constantly throughout the day. But when you're sitting down or getting ready to do a creative project, you can take the moment and say, okay, I'm going to, before I sit down to write, before I sit down to this easel, before I sit down to create my PowerPoint, I'm going to put on my favorite shirt and get that lotion that I really like, put it on, appreciate the fact that I'm here in this body, and then turn to my work. All right, let's move on to the sense of sight. Sight is what we use to move around in our everyday life and absorb everything. If you are a reader, then you probably are constantly reading things. If you are a visual artist, you're probably constantly seeing things that you want to adapt or you want to learn from. These things are often actually neat. You know, writers love to put together Pinterest boards of beautiful images that will help them engage in a new set or a new character. But we often underestimate how powerful our surroundings are. And that can be micro and it can be macro. And what I mean by that is we can enjoy the bigger surroundings around us, be it a town that you live in or your backyard or actually the room that you're working in. Obviously, I've put up some goofy kinds of art that they make me happy. I also have painted my walls because this is my office. This is the room where I get creative. And so I surround myself with visual things that that I appreciate, but I don't always have that good practice of taking a moment, getting my space ready, and creating a positive environment for myself. Now, this is something where you can use it as a distraction from your actual work if you always have to clean up and make your space perfect. So here is a little bit of a hack for a visual, pleasant experience that you could kind of give yourself just a moment with. I have, this is a little bit unstable, but I have this little silver tray that I thrifted. That's probably the best word. And on it, as you can see, this is a little tiny pine cone my sister brought home from Canada. She wasn't intending to give it to me. She was going to throw it away. And I was like, no, I need that on my little shelf of things that I love, this little rose rock. And obviously this candle, which I very rarely light, but I've been trying to be better about the fact that I can buy another one of those pillar candles if I wear this one out. And so to take that moment to like light a candle and enjoy the fact that the flickering light is so beautiful and so pleasing. I have this here, and I don't always take the time to appreciate the things that I have around me that are visually beautiful, but that is a good thing too. So like have a space, and even if you have have a cluttered environment, create for just a moment something in your space that is like a treat to the eyes. And that can be a card that someone sent you that you think is really pretty. It can be a plant that brings you joy. It can be buying a couple of cheap flowers at the market and having them there on your desk. But again, stop before you set to work. Take a moment to enjoy those things that you have created for yourself. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And you don't have to have your space completely clean, though I do think it is important to every once in a while assess whether the environment that you're working in is leading to bogging down of the creative process. Because while often art is produced in a messy environment because there are so many things that you need, and there's sometimes things that non-artists don't understand why you have to have them there, like a little burrow carved out of stone. Is that necessary for me to write? No, it's not. Except it is. It's important to me to have things that I think that are delightful in my space, because it is reminds me of the joy of life and the joy of beauty and the joy of creativity, which is what my work is about. Even just in the fact that I am writing a story. So sight is important. It doesn't have to be that you live in a beautiful home with a beautiful, huge studio, but it does mean, like, give yourself the gift of pleasant things to look at and allow yourself the time to appreciate them. And of course, nature is great. Getting out, turning your desk towards a window that is full of grass can be a really big shift in productivity for people if they've had their desk on the more practical wall, where there was going to be more space. These are the kinds of little shifts that you can do, little tweaks that you can do that will affect the impact of your environment over a long period of time. So that's also something you can think about. Go ahead and take a moment. We've talked about smell, touch, and sight. I didn't really have you stop to take notes about touch, but right now, go ahead and take a moment and think of 3 things that you love to look at. Maybe you'll even see them in your environment right now. And see, like, what are the 3 things that you could make sure are there with you when you're working, and maybe, so take a moment to write down 3 things that you already have that you love to look at, and 1 thing that you would really like to have. Maybe it's a candle, maybe it's a plant, maybe it's a better box for your hoard of essential oils. And write down what it would be that would give you just that little bit more of a spark of joy about your environment and your surroundings. You can also write down something that you could have in your environment that would contribute to that more tactile joy, be it having a bottle of lotion by your computer, or a worry stone that you could play with a little bit before getting started. All right, sound. Sound is very important. And we know that because so many artists will put their headphones in and listen to music that they like. And obnoxious sounds are things that we'll blame for not being able to do work. But that's not really what I'm talking about right now. I want to talk about tuning into sound and tuning into lack of sound. I think that a lot of us work with music on as a sort of distraction. And so while that is very good, in fact, sometimes I think that my music choices when I'm working on writing are importantly distracting me from over fixating on something. There are also moments when it might be better to relieve yourself of all the sound. And of course, going out and camping and being where you only hear the occasional rumble from the highway that's inevitably close to your campground is great, but that's not the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So think about the idea of taking a moment to not listen to anything. Maybe you could spend a moment and turn off all of your electronics, because they do have this little whine, even the smallest device. Light bulbs, they can make a noise. So if you have that kind of moment where you're feeling overwhelmed or like you can't find your way into work, maybe take the moment to turn off all of the electronics, turn off the music. Think about what you'd like to listen to. Maybe you'll just turn a diffuser on and hear the water in it. Maybe you'll leave one thing of electronics on and just listen to bird calls. Maybe you'll just open a window, turn everything off and open a window and listen to the bugs outside. There are so many delightful things to listen to when you shut everything else off. And there is also the fact that sometimes we can't create if we don't give ourselves space to not think about what we want to work on. And maybe you'll find that after a few moments of sitting outside with, no electronics on or with the window open, you'll hear your creativity start speaking to you again. And having that kind of regularly scheduled quiet time where it's not even that you necessarily are meditating and keeping your mind empty. That's not what I'm saying. It's that you take that time to relieve your ears of all of this distracting input, be it wonderful music that really pumps you up, which is great, just taking a moment away from that. Go ahead and if you have that piece of paper and pen, write down a couple of things that you use to drown out the noise and distract yourself from thinking too much. And then write down all of the things that are around you right now that you'd have to turn off to get complete silence. For me, it would be actually going out and turning off the air conditioning, turning off the lights, unplugging my computer, taking off my headphones because they have this little buzz even as I'm listening. You don't have to do that right now. You don't have to do that every day, but think about maybe you could even set a little time and say, hey, I'm going to try this experiment. I'm shutting everything off and listening to what is really around me that I can't turn off. In tomorrow at lunchtime or something like that. Last of all, we're going to talk about taste, and this one's going to be a bit more brief because I think that we enjoy our sense of taste a lot more than we think about enjoying our other senses in everyday life, because to us it's very important to eat good food. We're in this completely rich and diverse world of foods being available to us, though it's possible that you have a certain diet or a certain rut of recipes that you go to and restaurants that you go and order specific things. So maybe this will be a little bit more of an exercise than than it is for me, because I love to try new foods. I love to try new recipes. I love to go to the store and look at the weird vegetables and be like, I think I can make something with this. So our sense of taste, though, is one that we indulge a lot, because bland food or bad food is just not something that we necessarily have to have. We are spoiled by choice with for the most part in this time of global transportation and refrigeration. But I think that it also can be important to experiment and step out of our box as far as food goes, but also think about whether you could scale back and instead of having your tea, have water, try a lemon, and think about whether you could take that tasting experience and really relish it. Often when we eat, we're eating all these different kinds of foods. And we have raspberries, but we also have chocolate sauce. What if you were able to, what if you went to the store and you bought yourself some of the cherries that are in season right now, at least at Reese's, there were some cherries, and just enjoyed eating one cherry and tasting how it really tastes. And instead of having to follow it up with more, really experience that and sat in that experience. That's the kind of mindfulness that can really start your brain going. Because when you strip things down and simplify, like with sound, with taste, with smells, you are able to really engage with that one experience. And because you've simplified, your mind automatically starts to spin out all of these tendrils of other things that it wants to think about. Whereas when you've got music going and you've got Facebook popping up and you've got your Pinterest page, sometimes, even though those are all great things to use as resources, sometimes they crowd us with so much input, we can't then bring the output that is strong because we've got so much coming in instead of sitting for a moment with each experience with a certain image. So obviously these are all little things that you can touch on before writing practice, before sitting down to type, before sitting down to paint. And there are also some more macro things that you can do that are really great for your creativity that incorporate a lot of these. And again, I've already mentioned walks. Walking out into nature and spending like 20 minutes during the week just quiet, not putting your headphones in and listening to music, not bringing someone with you. That can be good to go for walks with people that you really love and enjoy being with, but taking that time to reset for a slightly longer period of time is so wonderful for the creativity. In The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron talks about the fact that a 20-minute walk once a week can be, or twice a week actually, I think is what she suggests, can help you solve problems that you've been knocking up against for so long. And instead, by taking that time out, by experiencing what the grass smells like as it's, as you're walking on it, or what the sounds the horses are making down the road, all of those things, you kind of pull back and you take that a more extended break to kind of tune into your sensory experience of life. Meanwhile, something in the back of your mind is continuing to work, but it doesn't have to be burdened with all of these other things that are coming at it, like, I better, reformat this paragraph, or I wonder if I really should choose a different physical characteristic to pick on for this, character's trait. Those kinds of things where our mind is really busy. Your mind will continue to roll those thoughts as you're out for your walk. But by scaling back and taking back, this is one of the kind of ideal experiences to reset your creativity. I also have another ideal practice is to go and do something like going to see art. Going for a fun drive, or going out to, going to a shop that you've never been in before. And again, just taking that time to experience it and let your creativity kind of continue to take in the input without having to be goal-oriented about it. And you'll find that that is also a great way to fill up that well of creativity, so that when you sit down the next time, or even a week from that day, you'll have that something click to really be a fresh new thing that you're bringing to your creativity, because you've given yourself that time to reset and experience things for yourself out in life, and then you're able to bring them back into your creativity. Yeah, so we have a couple of scales of things to do, little tiny rituals, practices of mindfulness that are a little bit larger, like going for walks, taking the time to really experience things, and then also kind of having a consistent practice of making sure to enjoy the things that you experience day in and day out. They will continue to feed into each other. And that is basically my outline of what I think could really help to get you started on sparking creativity by giving yourself a little space to breathe, a little space to experience life in this body as you have it, and use that to feed what you have going on. So I would like to, I am going to go off the recording now, and there will be a discussion in the comments on the replay, and you are welcome to come and discuss about what you think would be a really great practice for you using some of these things, and what some of the senses are that you don't usually engage with, that you're now thinking, oh, I could do more with that, and I could take that time and spend it with this sense, and I think that would really help me broaden and enrich my life. I'm going to turn off recording now. If you are with me live, I will be opening up the discussion for us together. Thanks for participating.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this webinar about integrating the 5 senses into your creativity and that practice, then you will probably also really get a lot out of Camp Mojo. This is my virtual summer camp for creativity, which is basically 5-minute creativity prompts for journaling about ways to release blocks on your creativity and incorporate things that make it more lively and productive. So check that out either at the Facebook page or unlockcoaching.com. There will be information in the description of this video, and feel free also to contribute to the discussion about what things you can do with your 5 senses to get a little break, a little breathing space, and a little bit more inspiration. Thanks for checking this out. Bye.